Hi, everybody, and welcome to this week's lesson. We are really close to Halloween time, and I thought that I'd do something different and try something fun and use one of these virtual backgrounds. Ooh. So you can tell that I'm in a super creepy graveyard. Fun fact about me, I'm like really creepy. I'm wearing my Friday the 13th t-shirt. All of this will come to light when I reveal the theme this week. But when I was in grad school, I like graveyards a lot. I'm really weird and you know, abnormal, but I love graveyards. There's something like calming and so soothing to me about a graveyard. There's like this quiet that you can't get anywhere else. And I actually would bring my laptop with me in grad school to the graveyard, and I would write my papers and my thesis leaning up against some World War II grave. It was really creepy and really weird. But anyways, that's a fun fact about your teacher Bill this week. This week, we're going to be discussing the decision-making process that goes with creating your speeches. So a lot of the times, major questions I get for first-time public speaking students is, what do I think about before, during, and after the speech? How do I come up with a topic? What do I figure out what to say? How do I figure out the kind of examples I'm going to use? And really, I want you to think about planning a speech just like planning a Halloween party. I do this for Halloween time because I know while it's only September, or it's not super duper close to Halloween yet, Halloween is coming, and we plan parties all the time. The decision-making processes that we go through about how to plan a party, what time to host it at, where to host it at, if we're gonna serve food, when we're gonna play music, are there gonna be games? These are all questions that we think about when we're planning a party, and these are really similar to the questions that you should be thinking about when planning a speech. So let's get public speaking out of your mind completely. Let's escape from speech class for 2 seconds and think about how planning a party is just like planning a speech. And for your only assignment this week, well, you have 2 assignments this week. You've got to, do your go reaction, or you got to do your peer evaluations for the Who Am I speech, which are fabulous, by the way. And then you have to plan your own Halloween party. So I'll talk a little bit about that at the end of this lesson. All right, so first things first, it's party time. So what do we got to do? Well, developing speeches, you got to think about the 3 types of decisions. And these 3 types of decisions are really similar for planning a party. First, you have to figure out what your global decisions are. Your global decisions are decisions that you as a speaker will make that impact or affect your entire speech. So when we're planning a party, we've got to make decisions that are going to impact the entire party, right? Then you're going to have local decisions. These are decisions that you as a speaker will make that will impact specific parts of the speech. When we're planning a party, we have to make decisions about, when we're going to serve food or what time the live band is going to start. These are decisions that we as a party planner will make that will then impact certain parts of the party. Finally, you are going to have to figure out your decision factors, or these are limitations that are placed upon you that you cannot control. Think of decision factors as decisions that have already been made for you. So you're going to have an assignment this week where you will plan a Halloween party, and I'm going to ask you, how do global decisions, local decisions, and decision factors work in your party planning process? So remember that question because you'll be asked that in your little quiz this week. All right, so let's go over these in a little bit more detail. I like to do decision factors first because if decision factors are the limitations or the decisions that are made for us, then we really want to start there. What can I not do, or what do I have to do based off of what's been told of me? So there are 3 types of decision factors when you think about your speeches. First, you've got your assignment and context factors. Then you've got to think about your audience, And finally, you've got to think about the physical location that you're going to give your speech in. All right, so first, let's talk about the assignment and context factors. When we talk about assignment and context factors, what I mean here is the assignment and context factors are concerned with explicit assignment requirements, but also implicit expectations. What do I mean by that? Well, explicit assignment requirements might be the things that you see on your rubric. So you already gave your first speech. I gave you an assignment sheet that said you have to have a bag. And in that bag, you have to have 3 items. And these 3 items need to describe who you are as a person based off of your personality. And that speech has to be 3 to 5 minutes total. And you have to stand while giving the speech. And you've got to review your items. And you've got to smile and provide eye contact. These are all things that as your instructor, I'm telling you, you have to do. So these are the things that have been explicitly covered on the rubric or the assignment sheet that tell you as a speaker, hey, this is what's expected of me. But implicit and situational expectations might be things that go without saying. For example, I don't say that you can't give your speech naked. I don't want to see you give your speech naked. That would be completely inappropriate and it would break so many societal norms. I shouldn't have to write, please don't be naked when giving your speech, because that's just implicitly understood, all right? So explicit assignment requirements are the things that are like literally stated, right? The things that I wrote on your rubric and on your assignment sheets that teach you what you're responsible for. The implicit situational expectations are things that are just kind of governed by society that aren't listed in the rubric, but you know should be appropriate, right? Like we already went over ethics, so I don't need to write like you can't break the law during this speech. That's implicitly stated. We know that already, so I'm not going to list that over and over and over again. So explicit, what's written and verbally confirmed from the teacher or from the person that I need to give the speech for to me as a speaker, and implicit, what are things that aren't stated that should be assumed, really. All right, and the 2 major factors regarding assignment and context are your speech goal. What is the goal you want to achieve during the speech? And the time limitations that it's going to take for you to do this, to achieve that speech goal. So let's go over that. My favorite duo in horror movie franchise. I love them. Anyways, good movies. If you haven't seen the Halloween movies, go watch them. First of all, your speech goals are threefold. So the first type of speech you can give is a speech to inform. These speeches are designed to teach the audience something new. This is actually going to be your next speech. And I'll talk a little bit more about that as we get closer, but your next speech is going to be an informative speech where the goal of your speech is to inform your audience or teach them about something. The next goal might be to persuade. These speeches are often designed to inspire an audience to change their beliefs, to think about something differently, or to take action and to stop doing something or to start doing something new. So that's going to be the last speech of your semester, the persuasive speech, to influence or inspire someone else. And then finally, your third speech goal might be to entertain. These speeches are designed to have fun with an audience. Now, oftentimes you're going to have a primary speech goal, right? My goal here is to inform someone about something. But you might entertain them while you're informing them. You might tell a lot of jokes or share some stories or theme a lecture off of Halloween parties, all right? So you can have a secondary goal, right? We can't really change our behavior before we first learn why that behavior is bad, right? So sometimes we'll see a secondary speech goal, but your speeches should always have a primary goal. What is the main purpose of my speech? To inform, to persuade, or to entertain? What is the main purpose of my party? Is it a Mary Kay party and I want to invite people over for dinner, sell them some makeup products and make money at the end? Is it a solar panel party where I just got solar panels on my roof and I want to inform my neighbors about how much money I'm saving and what solar panel looks like? Or is it a Halloween party and I just want to entertain the crap out of my family and friends by throwing a big costume party with a huge cauldron in the middle that smokes? All right, so what is the goal of my party? What is the goal of my speech? You have to figure that out first. And in this class, that's decided for you, right? I'm telling you that you have to give an informative speech, that you have to give a persuasive speech. So that's why your speech goal in this class is a decision factor, because it's a limitation, it's a requirement that I'm giving to you that you don't have any control over. In some cases out there, you might be asked to give a speech, and that's all you're told. I want you to give a speech. Well, are you going to give a speech to inform, or are you going to give a speech to persuade, or are you going to give a speech to entertain? So if that context factor isn't already decided for you, it becomes a global decision, and it's no longer a decision factor. So sometimes you'll see things in decision factors that can slip into a global decision, because that decision will then impact the entire speech. And if it's not decided for you, then it's no longer a decision factor. All right, but then that brings me to time limitations. So your speeches will always in this class have a minimum and maximum time limit. So I'll say you can speak for a minimum of 3 minutes, and you can speak for a maximum of 5 minutes, I think was your first speech. Then I try to stay at that and then move up. So it might be 5 to 7 for the informative. And then the persuasive is probably going to be 7 to 9. So you have that minute to hit and that max minute to reach. All right, it's important to be aware of your time and never go too short or too long. If you're supposed to give a 7-minute speech and you go 5 minutes, I want you to think about that a little bit differently. If I asked you to write a 7-page paper and you divided it, and you gave me a 5-page paper, what grade do you think you're gonna get? If it takes you 7 questions to get an A, but you only answer 3 questions correctly, what's 3 divided by 7? Not an A, right? So if you think of your time limit as like the page limit or the amount of questions to answer to hit, that might help you really, emphasize the time limit. If you go way too long, that would be really bad, because now your audience is going to start to get bored. They expected a 7-minute speech. They did not anticipate that they'd have to sit through a 10-minute speech. So you want to pay attention to your speech times. I'm always going to give you a plus and minus 15 buffer. So if your speech was supposed to be 5 to 7 minutes and you went 4 minutes and 45 seconds, I would treat that as a 5-minute speech. Just as if you went 7 minutes and 15 seconds, I would treat that as a 7-minute speech. But if you start to go 4 minutes, 3 minutes, 2 minutes, that would be just as bad as going 8 minutes, 9 minutes, 10 minutes. So you want to be aware of your speech time limit, and you want to make sure you're not going too short or too long. So practice, 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 practice. When you're giving your speeches, if you want to put a timer up that counts down your speech, don't let your alarm go in the middle of your speech, right? But if you want to watch your time, I'm totally fine with you holding a stopwatch and looking at it, that kind of thing. But also think about times out there. Have you ever been to a wedding where the best man or the maid of honor speech went on far too long? Right? We have time limits for speeches for a reason. And it's because we think about how much our audience can handle given the predetermined topic, and what appropriate time limit do we think that they can focus. All right. So could you imagine if I lectured for 3 hours, you came to class and it was a 3-hour class, and I nonstop lectured for 3 hours? That would be insane. It would be information overload. You'd get really bored. So, you want to think about those things. How much can my audience handle, and why was this time limit given to me? All right. So practice, practice, practice. All right, think about your Halloween parties. Is your Halloween party going to start at 8 and end at 10? Is it going to start at 9 and go until whenever anybody goes home? We like to know when we're responsible for showing up and when we're expected to leave. So when you make your Halloween party invitations and you say starting at 9 until whatever, you know, that's something as a party goer, as a participant, as a guest at your party, I want to know. If your party doesn't start at 8 and I show up at 5, that's going to be really awkward for the host, right? Maybe the party's not completely decorated yet, or the food hasn't arrived yet. But if the party starts at 8 and I show up at 11, that's going to be really annoying for the host as well. So we like time limits. We follow them all of the time. Now we just have to utilize them in our speeches, okay? All right, your audience analysis and background factors are also part of decision factors. We cannot change who our audience is. So we as speakers have to adapt to those behaviors that are already instilled in our audience. And you kind of learned about audience already a few weeks ago, you know, hostile audience, an audience that already agrees with you, an audience that is motivated to change. So you'll know kind of who your audience is. I mean, think of your general classroom. You're going to have some people who believe this, some people who believe that, but really at the end of the day, you're all similar in age. You live in a similar environment. You know, everyone's taking on school from home. We might be working from home. We're in the middle of a pandemic. I mean, we all have similarities in this class. So while you don't know your audience fully, you know, you can go through Go React and see how many men and how many females and how many, you know, how many men and how many women are in the class. You can look at the who am item speeches and watch everybody's items and get to know who they are as people. So you can't change our behaviors and our personalities. So you got to know those behaviors and personalities in order to adapt. So there's, you know, audiences will always bring their own backgrounds regarding a specific topic in mind. All right. So you have to think about, I want to give a speech about pumpkins. Maybe I want to give an informative speech about how pumpkins are grown, the gestation period, like after they're birthed and grown, how long we have until they rot or die. And then maybe my third main point is things you can do with pumpkins, maybe recipes you can make with them, or how you can like decorate them for the holidays. So that would be like an informative speech about pumpkins. I need to think about how much my audience already knows about pumpkins. All right, am I giving a speech in front of pumpkin farmers? If I'm giving this speech in front of pumpkin farmers, it's probably not a good speech, right? Because these farmers are already going to know that information. They're going to know how to care for a pumpkin, and they're going to know uses for pumpkins. But maybe I'm giving this speech in front of second graders around Halloween time, and learning about pumpkins could be really cool and interesting to them. So how much does my audience already know about the topic I want to give a speech on? What do I think their interest in this topic is? Are people going to be interested to listening to me speak about pumpkins for 5 to 7 minutes? What are their attitudes or their feelings about pumpkins? Right now we're in pumpkin spice latte, you know, prime time, right? Everybody wants a PSL. Everybody wants to take Instagram pictures at pumpkin patches. We're getting close to Halloween, so we want to carve pumpkins. Even after Halloween, we want pumpkin pies for the holidays, right? We're in fall. So maybe attitudes and interests for pumpkins will skyrocket now, but people might not be that interested about pumpkins in January and February. So what are the feelings and emotions and attitudes that my audience have towards pumpkins right now? All right, and we already talked about the audience types, right? So you want to know, how much do I think my audience already knows about this topic? Is it even worth giving a speech on it? What's the interest that my audience has? Do I think that they'll enjoy a speech about pumpkins? And what are the feelings or attitudes or emotions associated with pumpkins right now that I think my audience might have? All right, you got a captive or compelled audience. These people are going to want to listen to you. They're going to be excited to listen to you. They're going to be nice audience members, you know, the smiling and nodding, all of that stuff. You've got committed or inspired audience members. These people are going to want to specifically listen to you. They've chosen you, or they really, really like your topic, so they're inspired and motivated to keep going. You've got a contrary or hostile audience. These are people that are going to be totally against you no matter what. So if I hate pumpkins or I'm allergic to pumpkins and I just can't stand pumpkins, your speech is probably not going to change my mind. So you've got to evaluate who your audience is and understand what they already know, how they already feel, and if they'd even want to hear this speech or not. All right? Just like when you're thinking about who to invite. Well, my friend Lauren is deathly afraid of clowns, so can I host a circus-themed Halloween party? If I did, she probably won't come. All right, so knowing who your audience is and who your guests might be will help you figure out the things you want to do in your party, just like knowing who your audience is going to help you figure out the things you want to say in your speech and the topics you want to give your speech about. And then finally, you've got your concerned audience. These are people that, you know, want to listen to you because they want to learn something. So you've already learned about audiences. We can move on. All right, the last part about decision factors is you have to think about the physical location of where you're giving your speech. This is the environment. You know, are you giving a speech in front of 500 people in a gymnasium? Are you giving a speech in front of 7 family members when you stand up and give a toast at dinner? Are you giving a speech at a work conference where CEOs and general managers are present? Are you giving a speech for your online speech class where you've got to learn how to look in the camera and make it look like you're looking at your audience? So you have to know where I'm giving the speech and when I'm giving the speech. That is usually decided for you, which makes it a decision factor. All right, so the physical location will greatly impact your overall speech. You've got to think about the size of the room and how many people will be there. You've got to think about the condition of the room. You've got to think about the elements of the room. You got to think about technology. Do you need technology? Are you using it? Do you need a PowerPoint slide? Et cetera, et cetera. So if you're giving your speech in your bedroom and you've got like a Playboy bunny poster on the wall, you probably don't want to give your speech right there in front of the Playboy bunny poster. If you know that you've got spotty Wi-Fi, you're probably not going to want to give your speech on GoReact at 5 o'clock in the afternoon when everyone in your household is using the Wi-Fi. If your microphone sucks and you can't stand as far away as you want to, you might have to stand a little closer so your microphone can pick up your voice. If your computer is old and makes a loud humming noise when you're recording videos, you might want to record your video on your phone instead. So you've got to think about, where am I giving the speech? When am I do I have to give my speech at 8 o'clock in the morning? I might have to wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning to eat breakfast and work out and relax and practice. Am I giving my speech at 11 o'clock at night? I might want to take a nap around 7 o'clock so I'm not super tired and drained before I give that speech. Where am I giving my speech? When am I giving my speech? What do I need while I'm giving my speech? What do I do if I'm giving my speech and then my fire alarm goes off in the middle of my speech? All right. So you have to think about all of these things and adapt, because you can't just go, oh, my fire alarm went off in the middle of my speech. I gotta, I guess I'll upload a new speech. You kind of got to keep going. So maybe you say, oh my gosh, I meant to change the batteries for my fire alarm. I am so sorry. That's probably going to keep beeping, but let's just continue and move on to main point 2. All right. So you really got to think about all of the things that can go wrong and anticipate the adaptation you'll need to do in order to make those wrong things right, because you can't just stop. You have to keep going. Obviously, if like something crazy is happening, like there's a fire in the building, you shouldn't give your speech while catching a flame. You should stop and leave. But normally, if this were a normal class and there were no fires going off, maybe someone would cough or a cell phone would go off and you'd have to keep going for your speech. So figure out the physical location, the environment, the situation, the time, the place. You need to figure all that out. That is decided for you, right? You have to give these speeches for this class at home, What room are you going to give a speech in? What time are you going to do it? All right. Just like when you're planning your party, where are you going to have it? Are you going to have your party in a haunted house, like an old rundown warehouse that you might have to fix up? Are you going to throw your party in a mansion? Are you going to have your party in a graveyard? Are you going to have your party at the park district? All of these locations or environments are going to offer you a different set of guidelines, a different set of rules, a different set of conditions that you're going to have to work around to make your party happen. Just like where you perform your speech, when you perform your speech, who you're performing your speech for, and the type of speech that you've been asked to give will impact the overall speech. But those decisions have been decided for you. So I spend a lot more time on decision factors because I really want y'all to know that decision factors are the limits. What has been decided for me? As a speaker, what has been taken away from me? Those are your decision factors, decisions that you cannot make because they have been made for you. If the decision has not been made for you, then it's either a global or a local decision. A global decision are decisions that you as a speaker will make that will then affect or impact the overall speech. All right. So these are decisions that now I'm going to make as a speaker or I'm going to make as a party planner that will impact my entire speech or my entire party. All right. And these are the following things. All right. So selecting a topic, right? I'm telling you that you have to give an informative speech about culture for your next speech. But culture can be defined as my religion. It could be defined as my custom. It could be defined as my nationality. It could be defined as my sexual orientation. It could be defined as I love horror movies. So maybe I give a speech about horror culture, right? What is culture? You get to pick. So that topic then becomes a global decision. While giving an informative speech about your culture is a decision factor, the type of culture you select is a global decision because now that's going to impact or basically create your entire speech. Your thesis, what you decide your speech is actually going to be about, is going to determine or impact your entire speech. And then obviously your main points, how you're going to explain that thesis is going to impact your entire speech. Right? So your global decisions impact the entire speech. Just like when you're planning a party, is this going to be a costume party? If I show up without a costume, can I come in? Is there going to be a band? Like, is there going to be things for my guests to do, or are they just going to be standing around twiddling their thumbs? Are there going to be decorations? Is there going to be a fog machine that goes off every 5 minutes? What are the things that are going to make my overall party a success? Those are the global decisions that you want to think about for your speeches. All right, so when we think about topics, it's really important to begin with what you know. All right. If I'm telling you to give a speech about your culture, don't pick a culture that you've never experienced. Pick something that relates to your life. Because you are going to have to assess the significance. What makes this speech topic important? Why does this matter? And then you're going to have to explain the relevance of that topic for your audience. So if significance is this is important to everyone, relevance is why you, my specific audience that I'm giving this speech for today, should care about this topic. We've learned why this topic is important. How does it relate to you? All right. So if you pick topics that you don't really understand, that's going to be really hard to do. It's going to be really hard to explain to an audience why this is important and why they should care. You have to do that for every speech. Every time you give a speech, even if it's a best man speech, why is the groom so important to you? And how does this groom and their relationship affect everyone in the room? All right. You've got to make people believe that this speech you're giving is for them. So you do that by establishing significance and justifying the relevance. All right. We already talked about that. Significance and relevance is the most Important decision in the speech making process. If you cannot tell me and your audience why this speech topic is important and how it impacts my life as a listener, I'm automatically going to check out. And we do this as like the fourth sentence in the introduction, maybe the fifth sentence in the introduction. So you have to do this really, really early. And if you already haven't convinced me why I should care, do you think I'm going to listen to the rest of your 5-minute speech? Absolutely not. I'm going to start thinking about the other things I want to do during the day. I'm going to start thinking about an Instagram post I can make. I'm going to start getting really excited for the Love Island episode that's about to premiere at 7 o'clock tonight. Like, I'm going to be doing everything besides listening to your speech, because you, as a speaker, could not tell me how it impacts my life or why I should care. So topic is a global decision, because not only does it impact your entire speech, but it also wins your audience over, right? A bad topic is not going to be a good speech. So you really want to think about interests and knowledge and stuff like that that your audience have, which is why that's a decision factor, but this is a global decision. All right, your thesis is the central idea of your speech, and it should guide your entire speech forward. So your thesis, the topic is the umbrella that your speech lives in. The thesis is the handle that holds that speech together. So while the umbrella might be these cool things about this specific event, your thesis is the actual point, right? The handle comes down to a point. What's the point of the speech? The point of my speech is to teach you about pumpkins. The main points explain and illustrate that thesis further. What about pumpkins do I want to teach you? Well, first, I want to teach you how to grow and care for them. Second, I want to teach you how to figure out signs that your pumpkins are going to go rotting and when they're going to die and when's the best time to, pluck them or pull them from the vine. Before finally, the things that you can do with a finished pumpkin. All right, so what about pumpkins? These three things. All right, so those are also global decisions, because really that's your guideline for your speech. What is the speech about? How am I going to explain it? And then lastly, you have to speak about local decisions. And these are the decisions that you as a speaker will make that affect specific sections of a speech. All right, these are the examples that you use, the sources that you'll cite, your own personal stamps, your jokes, your stories, your personality, your clever statements that you'll use to inform and provide. This is your support material. And we're going to talk about this soon, but I want you to know my first main point might be how to grow and care for a pumpkin. Then I'm going to have subpoints underneath that. How do I plant the pumpkin? All of the information about how to plant a pumpkin is a local decision, because I'm only talking about that in main point 1. I wouldn't talk about planting a pumpkin in main point 3 when I'm talking about things to do with a finished pumpkin, right? So carving pumpkins and painting pumpkins and cooking pumpkin seeds, that would all be a local decision for main point 3, because main point 3 is about how to use pumpkins. All right, so while a speech about pumpkins and the 3 main points that teach me what I'm going to be explaining is a global decision, how I'm going to explain those explanations are local decisions. And we're going to have a whole lesson plan dedicated to just that. All right, I really, really hoped that you enjoyed this lesson. I think it's fun to think about planning a party and then relating that to a speech. Usually in class, I have you all plan the party in groups first before we do the lecture, and then I kind of explain what all this is, and then I have you go back in your groups to your party planning strategies and figure out which parts of your party were global decisions and which parts were local decisions and which parts were local decisions. Unfortunately, since we're not meeting, in person, we can't do that in groups, but you are going to have an assignment where you do just that. So for this particular week, you didn't have a reading, you only have this video lecture, and you have that assignment. So I do want you to go and click on that assignment and plan your party. Plan it in detail. What kind of Halloween party are you throwing? What are you going to do? What kind of food are you going to serve? Are there going to be decorations? Think about your party. Have fun with it. Maybe you are planning a Halloween party. Here's your chance to write it all down. Then I want you to go back through that party and identify what parts of the party were my global decisions, or the decisions that I made while planning this party that are going to impact the whole party. What parts of this party and the decisions that I made are local decisions? Or what things am I doing at this party that are just going to impact certain parts of the party? And then I want you to think about the decision factors. What were my limitations or the things that I had to do while planning this party? So when you click on that assignment, that'll be a little bit more self-explanatory, I think. But as always, you can ask me any questions that you have regarding this. There was no reading on it. So if I didn't explain something in full detail and you want me to explain it in a different way, just let me know. All right. Have a wonderful week. Everything this week is due by Sunday. Enjoy the nice fall weather, and I will see you next week. Bye, everybody.